Chapter 1. When Dreams Crumble. The rain hammered against the hospital windows as Zara Mitchell sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, her grandmother's frail hand clasped tightly in hers. Elena Mitchell, the woman who had raised her since she was 7, lay unconscious in the sterile white bed, connected to machines that beeped with mechanical precision. "Miss Mitchell?" Dr. Rodriguez approached with a clipboard and a grave expression. "We need to discuss your grandmother's treatment options." Zara's stomach twisted into knots. She knew what was coming. The same conversation they'd had 3 times already this month. Her grandmother's heart condition required surgery that their insurance barely covered, and the experimental treatments that could save her life cost more money than Zara had ever seen. "How much?" she whispered, already knowing the answer would crush her. The full treatment program, including the surgery and follow-up care, would be approximately $200,000. Without it, Dr. Rodriguez didn't need to finish the sentence. Zara nodded numbly. $200,000. She made $8 an hour at the coffee shop, worked weekends at a clothing store, and picked up odd jobs whenever she could. Even working every hour of every day, she couldn't earn that much money in 5 years. After the doctor left, Zara sat alone with her thoughts and the steady beeping of the heart monitor. Elena had sacrificed everything to raise her after her parents died in a car accident. She'd worked 2 jobs, saved every penny to help Zara attend art school, and never once complained about the burden. Now it was Zara's turn to save the woman who had saved her. Chapter 2. The Impossible Dream. That night, Zara returned to their tiny, 1-bedroom apartment and spread newspapers across the kitchen table. Job listings, apartment rentals, anything that might offer hope. But every decent-paying job required experience she didn't have or qualifications she couldn't afford to get. Her laptop, held together with duct tape and determination, displayed dozens of job application websites. She'd applied to everything. Receptionist positions, data entry jobs, even cleaning services. Most never responded. The few that did offered wages that wouldn't make a dent in the medical bills. As she scrolled through yet another job board, one listing caught her eye. Cross Industries, various positions available. She'd heard of Cross Industries, of course. Everyone had. Damian Cross, the 35-year-old tech genius who'd built a billion-dollar empire before most people finished college. His company's sleek black tower dominated the city skyline, a monument to success that seemed as distant from Zara's world as the moon. The listing was vague, mentioning competitive compensation and unique opportunities for the right candidate. It was probably another scam, but what did she have to lose? Zara spent the next hour crafting a cover letter that was part job application, part desperate plea. She was honest about her situation, her lack of corporate experience, and her willingness to do absolutely anything legal to earn enough money to save her grandmother's life. She hit send at 2:47 a.m. and tried not to think about how pathetic she must sound. Chapter 3. An Unexpected Response. The call came the next morning while Zara was getting ready for her shift at the coffee shop. Unknown number, but she answered anyway. These days, any call could be important. "Miss Mitchell? This is Thomas from Cross Industries. Mr. Cross would like to meet with you today at 3 p.m. Are you available?" Zara nearly dropped the phone. Yes. Yes, I'm available. Should I bring anything? Resume? References? Just bring yourself, miss. The address is 1247 Corporate Plaza, top floor. Ask for Mr. Cross's private elevator. Private elevator. Of course, a billionaire had a private elevator. Zara called in sick to both her jobs, a luxury she couldn't afford, but a risk she had to take. She spent 2 hours getting ready, trying to make her thrift store blazer and worn dress shoes look professional. Her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror showed a young woman trying desperately to look like she belonged in a world of power suits and corporate decisions. The Cross Industries building was even more intimidating in person. All glass and steel, reaching toward the sky like a crystal tower. Security guards, marble floors, and the kind of quiet efficiency that spoke of serious money. Thomas turned out to be a kind-faced man in his 50s who greeted her at the private elevator with a gentle smile. "Don't look so nervous, miss. Mr. Cross is looking forward to meeting you." The elevator rose smoothly, silently, carrying her higher than she'd ever been in any building. When the doors opened, Zara stepped into what could only be described as a palace in the sky. Chapter 4. The Man Behind the Empire. The penthouse office was larger than most apartments, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city. Modern art hung on the walls, each piece probably worth more than Zara's lifetime earnings. But what struck her most was how empty it felt, despite all the luxury. "Miss Mitchell." The voice came from behind a massive desk made of what looked like black marble. Damien Cross stood slowly, and Zara understood immediately why business magazines called him magnetic. Tall, dark-haired, with piercing green eyes that seemed to see everything. He was handsome in the way that powerful men often were, but there was something else, a loneliness that matched the empty feeling of the room. "Mr. Cross." She managed to keep her voice steady. "Thank you for seeing me." "Sit." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "I read your email. It was refreshingly honest." Zara perched on the edge of the chair, hands folded tightly in her lap. "I know it wasn't very professional, You're desperate." His tone wasn't mocking. If anything, it was understanding. "Your grandmother is dying, and you need money. A lot of money, quickly." Yes. There was no point in pretending otherwise. Damien studied her for a long moment, those green eyes seeming to catalog every detail of her appearance, her posture, her desperation. "What would you do for $200,000, Miss Mitchell?" The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Zara met his gaze directly. "Anything legal, anything moral. I'd work day and night. I'd learn whatever skills you needed. Would you live with me?" The words stopped her cold. "I'm sorry." Damien leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "I have a proposition for you, Miss Mitchell. It's unconventional, and it's not what you probably expected when you applied for a job here." Zara's heart hammered against her ribs. "What kind of proposition?" "I live alone in a mansion that's far too large for one person. I work constantly, travel frequently, and maintain a lifestyle that requires a certain presentation. I need someone who can accompany me to social functions, manage my household, and provide companionship when I'm home." "You mean like a housekeeper? A personal assistant?" Damien's smile was enigmatic. "Among other things, you would live in my home, have your own suite of rooms, access to anything you need. In return, you would be available when I need you, accompany me when required, and maintain absolute discretion about our arrangement." Zara's mind raced. It sounded too good to be true, which usually meant it was. "And the compensation?" $200,000 paid in full after 6 months of satisfactory service. Plus all medical expenses for your grandmother, effective immediately. The number hit her like a physical blow. 6 months. She could save Elena's life and have enough left over to finish school, maybe even help Elena live comfortably for years to come. "What exactly would be expected of me?" she asked, carefully. Damien stood and walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "Discretion, availability, the ability to adapt to my world and represent yourself appropriately. Beyond that, we would determine the details as we go." There was something he wasn't saying, something hovering just beneath the surface of his carefully chosen words. But Zara thought of Elena lying in that hospital bed, of the doctor's grave expression, of the mountain of bills that grew larger. Every day, I need to think about it, she said, though her heart was already screaming yes. Of course. Damien turned back to her, extending a business card. My personal number. Call me by tomorrow evening with your decision. Chapter 5. The point of no return that night. Zara sat by Elena's bedside, holding her grandmother's hand and wrestling with the biggest decision of her life. Elena was awake but weak, her voice barely above a whisper. You look troubled, mija, Elena said, squeezing Zara's hand with what little strength she had. There's an opportunity, Zara said carefully. A job. It would pay enough for your treatment, but it's complicated. Elena's eyes, still sharp despite her illness, studied her granddaughter's face. What kind of job? Zara explained the offer, as diplomatically as she could, watching Elena's expression shift from curiosity to concern, to something like understanding. You don't trust him, Elena observed. I don't know him, but Grandma, it's enough money to save your life and change everything for us. Elena was quiet for a long time, her breathing shallow but steady. Finally, she spoke. Your grandfather used to say that sometimes the universe puts opportunities in our path that seem too good to be true. The trick is learning to tell the difference between a blessing and a trap. How do you tell the difference? By listening to your heart, not your fear. Elena squeezed her hand again. What does your heart tell you about this man? Zara closed her eyes, thinking about Damien Cross, the loneliness she'd sensed beneath his polished exterior. The way he'd looked at her, not like she was beneath him, but like he was genuinely curious about who she was. The fact that he'd been honest about the unconventional nature of his offer instead of trying to trick her into something. I think he's lonely, she said quietly. I think he's as lost as I am, just in a different way. Elena smiled weakly. Then maybe you can help each other. When visiting hours ended, Zara walked to the hospital parking lot and pulled out the business card. The numbers seemed to glow in the dim light of the street lamp. She dialed before she could lose her nerve. Miss Mitchell. His voice was warm, unsurprised. Have you made your decision? Yes. Her voice was steadier than she felt. I accept your offer, Mr. Cross. Damien, if we're going to be living together, we should probably use first names. Can you be ready to move in tomorrow? Tomorrow. It seemed impossibly fast and not nearly fast enough at the same time. Yes. But I have conditions. A pause. Go on. My grandmother's treatment starts immediately, no matter what happens between us. If this arrangement doesn't work out, her medical care continues until she's recovered. Agreed. What else? I want everything in writing. The terms, the compensation, everything. Of course. Thomas will pick you up tomorrow at noon with a contract for your review. Anything else? Zara took a deep breath. I need to know what I'm really agreeing to, Damien. Not the corporate speak, not the careful wording. What do you really want from me? Another pause, longer this time. When he spoke, his voice was softer, more honest than it had been during their meeting. I want someone real in my life, Zara. Someone who isn't there because of my money or my connections or what I can do for them professionally. I want to come home to a house that feels like more than just an expensive place to sleep. I want conversations that matter and companionship that's genuine. As for anything else, he trailed off. We'll figure that out as we go. Does that scare you? Terrifying, she admitted. But I'm in. Good. Welcome to my world, Zara Mitchell. I hope you're ready for it to change everything. As Zara hung up the phone and walked back to her tiny apartment to pack her few belongings, she realized that Damien Cross was right about one thing. Everything was about to change. She just hoped she was strong enough to handle whatever came next. The rain had stopped, and for the first time in months, Zara felt something that might have been hope. Chapter 6. Entering a New World. The limousine that arrived at noon was longer than Zara's entire apartment. Thomas emerged with a warm smile and a thick envelope containing the contract. As they drove through the city toward the wealthy district, Zara read through the legal documents with growing amazement. The terms were more generous than she'd dared hope. $200,000 after 6 months, Elena's medical bills, covered immediately, plus a monthly allowance for personal expenses. The duties were listed as household companionship, social accompaniment, and personal assistance as required. It was all very proper and legal, though the underlying implications made her pulse quicken. "First time seeing the boss's place?" Thomas asked, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. "First time seeing any place like this, I imagine," Zara replied, watching the houses grow larger and more impressive as they drove. Thomas chuckled. "Mr. Cross is a good man, miss. Lonely but good. He's had a hard time since his wife died." Zara's head snapped up. "He was married 3 years ago. Caroline was, well, she was everything to him. Cancer took her fast. He hasn't been the same since." The limousine turned through massive iron gates and up a curved driveway lined with perfectly manicured gardens. The mansion that came into view was breathtaking, a modern masterpiece of glass and stone that seemed to blend seamlessly with the landscape around it. "My God," Zara whispered. 12 bedrooms, 15 bathrooms, indoor pool, home theater, and more luxury than one person knows what to do with," Thomas said. "Your suite is in the East Wing. Mr. Cross thought you'd appreciate the morning light." Chapter 7. The master of the house, Damien, was waiting at the front entrance, dressed casually in dark jeans and a white button-down shirt. Without the corporate armor of his business suit, he looked younger, more approachable, but no less magnetic. "Welcome home," he said, and something about the way he said "home" made Zara's chest tighten. The interior of the mansion was even more impressive than the exterior. Soaring ceilings, marble floors, and artwork that belonged in museums. But like his office, it felt empty despite all the beauty. "This is Maria," Damien said, introducing a middle-aged woman with kind eyes. "She manages the household staff. Anything you need, she can help you." "Welcome, Miss Mitchell," Maria said warmly. "We're so pleased to have someone here to keep Mr. Cross company." Damien led her through the house, pointing out the kitchen, the library, the various living areas. Everything was pristine, expensive, and clearly unused. It was like living in a beautiful museum. "Your rooms," he said finally, opening double doors to reveal a suite that was larger than the apartment she'd shared with Elena. The bedroom was decorated in soft blues and creams, with French doors leading to a private balcony overlooking the gardens. There was a sitting area with a fireplace, a bathroom with a soaking tub that could hold 3 people, and a walk-in closet that was currently empty except for a few items hanging inside. "I took the liberty of having some clothes ordered for you," Damien said, noting her surprised expression. "We'll be attending several social functions, and you'll need appropriate attire." Zara touched one of the dresses, silk that probably cost more than she used to make in a month. "This is too much. It's necessary. In my world, appearance matters. You'll learn." His tone was matter-of-fact, but not unkind. Still, it reminded Zara that she was now living in a world with rules. She didn't understand. "I'll let you settle in," Damien said. "Dinner is at 7. We'll eat together most evenings when I'm home." After he left, Zara sank onto the massive bed and tried to process her new reality. Just yesterday, she'd been serving coffee to rude customers and worrying about paying rent. Now she was living in a mansion, wearing designer clothes, and sharing meals with one of the most powerful men in the city. Her phone buzzed with a text from the hospital. Elena's surgery was scheduled for the following week, and all expenses had been covered by an anonymous benefactor. Zara buried her face in the silk pillows and cried, from relief, from fear, from the overwhelming magnitude of what she'd agreed to. Chapter 8. Learning the game dinner was served in a dining room. That could have seated 20, though only 2 places were set at one end of the long table. Damien had changed into a dark suit, and Zara wore one of the new dresses, a simple black number that fit perfectly despite the fact that they'd never measured her. "How did you know my size?" she asked as Maria served the first course. "I'm very good at reading people," Damien replied, cutting into his steak with surgical precision. "It's a necessary skill in business." The conversation was polite but stilted at first. Damien asked about her education, her family, her dreams. Zara found herself opening up more than she'd intended, telling him about her parents' death, Elena's sacrifices, her love of art, and her abandoned dreams of becoming a professional artist. "Why abandoned?" he asked. "Reality. Art doesn't pay the bills, and someone had to take care of Elena." What if bills weren't a concern anymore? The question hung between them. "I suppose I haven't let myself think about that." "You should. You're going to have time to think about a lot of things while you're here." After dinner, Damien showed her his study, a more intimate space than his corporate office, lined with books and dominated by a fireplace. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. "Tell me about your wife," Zara said impulsively, then immediately regretted it when his face went cold. "That's not something we need to discuss. I'm sorry. Thomas mentioned her, and I thought, Thomas talks too much." Damien moved to the bar and poured himself a scotch. "Caroline is in the past. You're here now." The way he said it made Zara's skin prickle with awareness. There was something in his tone, in the way he looked at her, that reminded her of the unspoken elements of their arrangement. "What exactly do you expect from me, Damien?" she asked quietly. He took a sip of his drink, considering her question. "Honesty, loyalty, your time and attention when I need it. And if you need more than that?" Their eyes met across the room, and the air between them seemed to crackle with electricity. "Then we'll discuss it when the time comes." Chapter 9. Crossing Lines. The first week passed in a blur of new experiences. Zara accompanied Damien to a charity gala where she met the city's elite and learned to navigate conversations about things she'd never experienced. She sat in on business, meetings, not participating but observing, learning the language of power and money. Damien was the perfect gentleman in public, attentive, charming, protective. But in private, the tension between them grew stronger each day. Lingering glances across the dinner table, his hand on her back lasting a moment too long when he guided her through a crowd. The way he sometimes watched her when he thought she wasn't looking. Elena's surgery was a success, and her recovery was progressing better than anyone had dared hope. For the first time in months, Zara could breathe without the constant weight of worry crushing her chest. "You look different," Damien observed one evening as they sat by the fire in his study. "How so?" "Lighter. Like you're not carrying the world on your shoulders anymore." Zara curled up in the leather chair across from him, wearing silk pajamas. That cost more than her old car. "I feel different. I feel guilty for feeling different." "Why guilty?" "Because I'm living in luxury while Elena is still in the hospital. Because I'm enjoying this when it's not real." "What makes you think it's not real?" The question caught her off guard. "Because it's temporary. Because you're paying me. Because this is all an arrangement, not..." "Not what?" She met his eyes and saw something there that made her heart race. Not real life. Damien set down his drink and moved to the couch where she sat. "What if I told you it could be real?" "Damien, you've been here 2 weeks, Zara. 2 weeks. And this house feels more like a home than it has in 3 years. You make me laugh. You challenge me. You make me remember what it feels like to want something besides the next deal, the next acquisition." He was close enough now that she could smell his cologne, could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. This isn't part of our agreement. Forget the agreement. His hand touched her face, thumb brushing across her cheek. Tell me you don't feel this too. Zara's breath caught. She did feel it. Had been fighting it since the day she'd moved in. The attraction, the connection, the way he looked at her like she was the most fascinating woman he'd ever met. I feel it, she whispered, but this is dangerous. I know. His thumb traced her bottom lip. I don't care anymore. When he kissed her, it was soft at first, questioning. But when she kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, the kiss deepened into something hungry and desperate. All the tension that had been building between them exploded into heat and need. Zara, he murmured against her lips. I want you. Not because of our arrangement, not because I'm paying you, but because I'm falling for you and I can't stop it. She pulled back to look at him, seeing vulnerability in his eyes that made her chest ache. I'm falling too, and it terrifies. Me? Why? Because what happens when the 6 months are up? What happens when you get bored with the novelty of having me here? What happens when you remember that I'm just a poor girl from the wrong side of town who needed your money? Damien's hands framed her face. What happens is that we figure out how to make this work. What happens is that I stop hiding behind contracts and arrangements and tell you the truth. I'm in love with you, Zara Mitchell, and I want you to stay forever. Chapter 10. The Fall. The confession hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. Zara searched his face, looking for any sign that this was another carefully calculated move, another part of some elaborate game she didn't understand. All she saw was honesty. Raw, vulnerable honesty from a man who probably hadn't allowed himself to be vulnerable in years. I love you too, she whispered, and watched relief flood his features. This time when he kissed her, there was no hesitation. His hands tangled in. Her hair, her fingers worked at the buttons of his shirt, and the careful boundaries they'd maintained crumbled like paper in fire. He carried her to his bedroom, a space she'd never seen before, all dark wood and masculine elegance. The massive bed dominated the room, and when he laid her down on the silk sheets, Zara felt like she was crossing a line from which there would be no return. Are you sure? He asked, his voice rough with desire. I've never been more sure of anything. They made love with a passion that surprised them both. Damien was gentle but demanding, worshipping her body like she was something precious and rare. Zara gave herself to him completely, holding nothing back, and felt herself falling deeper with every touch, every kiss, every whispered endearment. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, his fingers trailing through her hair. This changes everything, she said softly. I hope so. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. I'm tired of living like a ghost, Zara. You make me feel alive again. What about Caroline? She felt him tense slightly. Caroline was my past. You're my future, if you'll have me. What kind of future? Whatever kind you want. Marriage, children, growing old together. I have enough money to last several lifetimes. All I need is someone to share it with. Zara lifted her head to look at him. You're talking about forever. I'm talking about love. Real love. Not arrangements or contracts or obligations. Just two people who found each other against all odds. As she lay in his arms, listening to his heartbeat beneath her ear, Zara felt something she'd never experienced before. Complete security. Not just financial security, but the security of being truly loved, truly wanted, truly cherished. But in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that things that seemed too good to be true usually were, and she couldn't quite silence the fear that this perfect happiness was too fragile to last. Chapter 11. The Reality of Love. 3. Months into their arrangement, Zara's life had transformed beyond recognition. Elena had recovered completely and was living in a beautiful assisted living facility that felt more like a luxury resort. Zara had returned to her art, setting up a studio in one of the mansion's unused rooms, and was preparing for her first gallery showing. But the most dramatic change was her relationship with Damien. What had started as a business arrangement had evolved into something deep and real. They were partners in every sense, lovers, best friends, and each other's strongest supporters. "Good morning, beautiful," Damien murmured, wrapping his arms around her waist as she stood at the kitchen island, sketching ideas for her next painting. "Morning yourself, handsome." She leaned back against his chest, feeling that familiar warmth spread through her whenever he touched her. Their morning routine had become sacred. Coffee together while Damien reviewed his schedule, Zara working, on her art while he handled calls, stolen kisses between meetings. It was domestic and perfect and everything Zara had never dared to dream of. "Victoria wants to meet with you today," Damien said, his tone carefully neutral. Zara tensed. Victoria Sterling, Damien's business advisor and longtime friend, had made her disapproval of their relationship crystal clear. She'd been part of Damien's inner circle for years, had been close to Caroline, and clearly saw Zara as an interloper who was taking advantage of a grieving widower. "What does she want?" She didn't say. "But I think it's time you two had a conversation. Victoria is important to me, and you're the most important thing in my life. I need you to get along." Zara turned in his arms. "And if we can't?" "You will." He kissed her forehead. "Because you're both intelligent, strong women who want what's best for me." Chapter 12. Battle Lines Victoria's office was as cold and intimidating as the woman herself. Tall, blonde, and sharp as a blade, she represented everything about Damien's world that made Zara feel like an outsider. "Miss Mitchell, thank you for coming." Victoria didn't offer her a seat, so Zara remained standing. "You wanted to see me?" "I wanted to discuss your relationship with Damien." Victoria moved to her desk and picked up a folder. "I've been doing some research into your background." Zara's blood ran cold. "What kind of research?" "The kind that reveals interesting facts. For instance, did you know that you're not the first young woman Damien has offered this type of arrangement to?" The words hit Zara like a physical blow. "What are you talking about?" Victoria opened the folder and pulled out several photographs. "Meet Rebecca Chen, Ashley Williams, and Sarah Torres. All young, all beautiful, all in desperate financial situations when Damien found them." Zara stared at the photos, her world tilting on its axis. 3 women, all roughly her age, all looking at the camera with the same expression of grateful adoration she'd probably worn in her early weeks with Damien. "What happened to them?" 6 months, exactly as contracted. Then generous severance packages and one-way tickets to new cities. Rebecca is in Paris now, I believe. Ashley moved to London. Sarah chose Tokyo. Zara's legs felt weak. "You're lying." "I'm protecting him." Victoria's voice was crisp, professional. "Damien has a savior complex, Miss Mitchell. He finds broken, desperate women and tries to fix them. It makes him feel needed, helps him avoid dealing with his grief over Caroline's death." That's not what this is, isn't it? Think honestly. Would Damien Cross have looked twice at you if you'd been financially secure and emotionally stable when you met? The question cut deep because Zara had wondered the same thing herself during sleepless nights. Would Damien have fallen for her if she'd been confident and independent instead of desperate and needy? "He loves me," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "He loves the idea of saving you. There's a difference." Victoria pulled out another document. "This is a non-disclosure agreement and a severance offer. $2 million, Miss Mitchell. Enough to set you and your grandmother up for life, plus a full scholarship to any art school in the world." Zara stared at the papers. $2 million. More money than she'd ever dreamed of. All you have to do is walk away quietly. Let Damien believe you've decided the relationship isn't working. He'll be hurt for a while, but he'll move on. He always does. And if I refuse? Victoria's smile was razor sharp. Then I'll be forced to share some interesting information about your financial arrangements with certain business associates. It would be a shame if rumors started circulating about Damien's questionable personal relationships. His reputation is everything in this industry. The threat was clear. Sign the agreement and disappear, or Victoria would destroy both Zara and Damien's reputations with carefully placed gossip and innuendo. I need time to think. You have 24 hours. After that, the offer expires and things become unpleasant. Chapter 13. The truth about Love Zara drove aimlessly for hours, Victoria's words echoing in her mind. Was she really just the latest in a string of broken women Damien had tried to save? Had their love affair been nothing more than an elaborate pattern he repeated every few years? She found herself at Elena's facility, sitting in the garden with the woman who'd raised her. "You look troubled, mija," Elena said, taking Zara's hand in her weathered ones. Zara told her everything, about the other women, about Victoria's ultimatum, about her growing doubts about whether Damien's feelings were real. Elena listened without judgment, her wise eyes never leaving Zara's face. When the story was finished, she was quiet for a long time. "Do you remember when you were 16 and that boy Miguel broke your heart?" she finally said. "What does that have to do with anything? You came home crying, convinced you'd never love. Again, that no man could be trusted. I told you then what I'm telling you now. Love isn't about the past, mija. It's about the present. It's about how someone makes you feel when you're with them, how they treat you when no one is watching. But what if Victoria is right? What if I'm just another project to him?" Elena squeezed her hand. "Then you'll deal with that truth when it comes. But don't let fear and other people's poison destroy something beautiful before you know for certain. She's threatening to ruin his reputation if I don't leave. And what does your heart tell you to do?" Zara closed her eyes, thinking about the man who'd held her while she cried, who'd encouraged her art, who'd looked at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. "It tells me to fight for him." "Then fight, mija. Fight for love, fight for truth, and fight for the life you deserve." Chapter 14. The Confrontation. Zara returned to the mansion that evening to find Damien waiting for her, pacing the living room, like a caged animal. "Where have you been? Victoria said you two had a meeting, but you've been gone for hours. We need to talk." Zara's voice was steady despite the turmoil in her chest. Something in her tone made him go still. "What's wrong?" "Tell me about Rebecca, Ashley, and Sarah." The color drained from Damien's face. "Victoria told you about them." "So it's true. I'm not the first woman you've made this arrangement with." Damien ran his hands through his hair, looking suddenly older. "No, you're not." The confession hit her like a physical blow, even though she'd been expecting it. "How many others have there been?" "3. Over the past 3 years, after Caroline died." "And they all ended the same way? 6 months, then you sent them away, with money and a new life?" "Yes." His voice was barely above a whisper. Zara felt tears threatening but refused to let them fall. "So what makes me different? What makes you think this time is real?" Damien moved toward her, but she stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself protectively. "Everything makes you different. The way you challenge me, the way you make me laugh, the way you see through all the walls I've built around myself. Or maybe I'm just better at playing the role than the others were." "God damn it, Zara, this isn't a role!" His composure cracked, revealing the raw pain beneath. "Yes, I've made mistakes. Yes, I've used relationships to avoid dealing with my grief. But what we have is real. How can you be sure? Because for the first time in 3 years, I'm not thinking about Caroline every waking moment. Because I can imagine a future again. Because when I wake up next to you, I feel like myself again instead of a ghost going through the motions of living. His words were passionate, convincing. But Zara couldn't forget the photos of those other women, the look of trust and love in their eyes. Victoria has offered me $2 million to walk away quietly. Damien's face went white. And? She says if I don't take it, she'll destroy both our reputations with rumors and gossip. That manipulative bitch? Damien's voice was ice cold. I'll destroy her career before I let her hurt you. Will you? Or will you decide it's easier to let me go and find another broken bird to fix? The question hung between them like a sword. Damien stared at her for a long moment, then moved to his safe and pulled out a small velvet box. I was going to wait until our 6-month anniversary, he said quietly. I wanted it to be perfect, romantic, but I think you need to see this now. He opened the box to reveal a stunning engagement ring, not ostentatious but elegant and timeless. I love you, Zara Mitchell. Not because you needed saving, not because fixing you makes me feel better about myself, but because you're the strongest, most beautiful, most incredible woman I've ever known. You saved me just as much as I saved you. Zara stared at the ring, her heart hammering. Damien, marry me. Not because of our arrangement, not because of money or contracts or obligations. Marry me because you love me and because we're better together than we ever were apart. Chapter 15. Choosing Love. The ring sparkled in the lamplight, beautiful and symbolic of everything Zara had never dared to dream of. But Victoria's words still echoed in her mind, poison designed to make her doubt everything she felt. I need you to fire Victoria, she said quietly. Damien's eyebrows rose. What? If you want me to marry you, if you want me to believe this is real, I need you to choose me over her. She'll never accept our relationship, and she'll spend the rest of our lives trying to destroy it. Zara, Victoria has been my advisor for 8 years. She's one of my oldest friends. And she just threatened to destroy both our reputations if I don't disappear from your life. She's not your friend, Damien. She's someone who wants to control you. Damien was quiet for a long time, wrestling with the implications of what she was asking. Victoria had been Caroline's best friend, had helped him through the darkest period of his life, had been instrumental in building his business empire. You're asking me to choose between you and her. I'm asking you to choose between love and control, between a future and the past. And if I choose you? Zara took the ring from the box and slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. Then I choose you too. Forever. The kiss that followed was desperate and passionate, full of promise and hope and the kind of love that conquered all obstacles. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. I'll call Victoria tomorrow, Damien said against her lips. I'll tell her that her services are no longer needed. And the other women? Rebecca, Ashley, and Sarah? I'll contact them personally. They deserve to know that what we had was real for them too, even if it wasn't the forever kind of love. They deserve better than being dismissed as mistakes. Zara nodded, satisfied. This was the man she'd fallen in love with. Honest, caring, willing to face his past and make amends for his mistakes. So what happens now? She asked. Now we plan a wedding. Now we start our real life together. Now we prove that love really can conquer everything, even the ghosts of the past. 6 months later, Zara stood in the garden of their home, no longer Damien's house, but truly their home together, surrounded by friends and family. Elena sat in the front row, tears of joy streaming down her face. Thomas was serving as Damien's best man, beaming with pride. Even Maria had tears in her eyes as she watched the woman who'd brought life back to the mansion prepare to officially become part of the family. The wedding was small and intimate, just the way they'd wanted it. No society reporters, no business associates trying to network, no one who didn't genuinely care about their happiness. "You look beautiful," Damien whispered as they exchanged vows under an arch of Elena's favorite flowers. Roses that Eduardo, her new friend from the gardening club, had grown specially for the occasion. "You look pretty good yourself," Zara replied, her voice thick with emotion. The vows they'd written themselves were simple but heartfelt. Promises to love each other through good times and bad, to support each other's dreams, to never let money or success come between them, and to always remember that their love was the real treasure, not the fortune that had brought them together. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the kiss that sealed their union was witnessed by applause and cheers from everyone who'd supported them through their journey. Later, as they danced their first dance as a married couple, Zara marveled at how far they'd both come. "Any regrets?" Damien asked, spinning her slowly. "Just one," she said, and saw worry flicker in his eyes. "I regret that it took desperation to bring us together. I wish we'd found each other sooner." His smile was radiant. "We found each other exactly when we were supposed to. Everything that happened before led us to this moment." As the evening progressed, Zara found herself standing on the terrace, looking out over the gardens that had become her sanctuary. Her art studio was visible through the windows, where her paintings, now selling in galleries across the city, brought beauty and joy to others. Elena appeared beside her, moving slowly but steadily on her own 2 feet. "Happy, mija?" "Happier than I ever thought possible." "And the money? The mansion? The fancy life?" Zara considered the question seriously. "It's wonderful, but it's not what makes me happy. Damien makes me happy. The love we share, the life we're building together, that's what matters." Elena nodded approvingly. "Your mother would be proud. You chose love over security, truth over comfort. That takes courage. I learned from the best." As the night wound down and the last guests departed, Zara and Damien found themselves alone in their bedroom, still in their wedding clothes, but barefoot and relaxed. "So, Mrs. Cross," Damien said, pulling her into his arms, "what do you want to do with the rest of our lives?" "Everything," Zara replied, reaching up to loosen his tie. "Travel the world, raise children, grow old together, support each other's dreams. I want to do everything with you." Everything sounds perfect. As they made love as husband and wife for the first time, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. What had started as a desperate plea for help had become the greatest love story of her life. Outside their window, the city sparkled with possibilities, but inside their home, 2 hearts beat as one, proving that sometimes the most beautiful fairy tales began with the scariest leaps of faith. Epilogue. 5 years later, the gallery opening was in full swing, champagne flowing and art lovers admiring the latest collection from the city's newest sensation. Zara moved through the crowd with practiced ease, discussing her paintings with collectors and critics, but her eyes kept drifting to the corner where Damien stood with their 3-year-old daughter, Isabella. "Mama paint?" little Isabella asked, pointing at a particularly colorful abstract piece. "Yes, sweetheart. Mama painted that one for you." Zara's heart swelled as she watched her husband patiently explain each painting to their daughter, his face soft with love and pride. This was the life she'd never dared to dream of: love, family, artistic success, and the security to enjoy it all. Elena, now 85 but still sharp as ever, appeared at her elbow. "Another successful show, mija?" Thanks to the foundation Damien set up for emerging artists, he's done more for the art community in 5 years than most philanthropists do in a lifetime, and you've done more for him than any amount of money ever could. It was true. Damien had changed as much as she had over the years. The cold, lonely billionaire had been replaced by a warm, engaged husband and father who used his wealth to make a real difference in the world. "Mama!" Isabella ran over and launched herself into Zara's arms. "Daddy says we can get ice cream after." Did he now? Zara looked over at Damien, who shrugged innocently. "I may have mentioned ice cream," he admitted, joining their little family group. As they prepared to leave the gallery, another sold-out show, another triumph for the girl who'd once served. Coffee for minimum wage. Zara felt overwhelming gratitude for the twists of fate that had led her to this moment. "Ready to go home?" Damien asked, taking Isabella's hand while wrapping his other arm around Zara's waist. "Always," Zara replied, and meant it with every fiber of her being. Their love story had begun with desperation and a shocking offer, but it had evolved into something beautiful, lasting, and real. They'd proven that love could bridge any gap, overcome any obstacle, and transform any life, as long as both people were willing to fight for it. And as they walked out into the night, their daughter chattering happily between them and their love stronger than ever, Zara knew that their greatest adventure was still ahead of them.